Hello! So last night PMDG finally released the Boeing 777-300 for Microsoft Flight Simulator. I stayed away from their website last night, although I did purchase it last night, because there were so many thousand people trying to purchase it and download it at the same time. It became quite amusing actually. So hopefully by today everybody that was trying to buy it and download it has done so, and I thought it might be useful if I ran through starting the airplane up for people who've never seen the 777 before. So I've written up a standard, a functional startup procedure, which I can show you here. So if you've never seen one of these procedures that I typically write up, I started doing these for myself, and then I started selling them to others that wanted them for a nominal fee. So it goes through all the steps you need to do to get the airplane up and running. So it's got all the keyboard combinations to move around the cockpit using the default views. It's got where to look for things around the cockpit and what buttons to press everywhere. So it's just a very, very basic guide of the functional steps required to get the airplane up and running. So we're going to run through that together and get the airplane up and running. So first things first, when you get into the 777, in common with the other PMDG aircraft, is you can see I've got it in a cold and dark state. This is not how it comes out of the box. It will already be up and running on the flight deck when you first install it, but I wanted it to be cold and dark. So the way you can do that, if you go and look at the FMC, if it's already cold and dark, you hold the menu button on. If it was already up and running, you just press the menu button and the options will appear. Obviously, if you are cold and dark, you only get a subset of functions. So in this case, we're going to go into the PMDG setup options, and we get some important options in here. The two we're going to look at is panel state load and startup state. So if we go to panel state load, we can shortcut the aeroplane to any of the listed states. And there's more than one page of them. So you can go through and get it ready, for the runway immediately if you want to. But we're going to set cold and dark. Okay, so I'm not actually going to do it. You can see I would press it and then press execute to make it happen. So if I go back to menu, back to PMDG setup, the one I really want to show you is startup state, cold and dark. So this is the state the airplane will always load in regardless of where you place it on the ground. So if I want it to be cold and dark every time, because I'm always going to start at a gate to run through setting the aeroplane up, because I think that's fun. I know some people don't, but this is just me. So if I execute that, it just saves that, so the next time I load the plane, it will be cold and dark. Okay, so let's press the menu button to come back out of there. What do we do to get the airplane up and running then? So I'm going to run through my own procedure, basically to proof the procedure. So we'll see how we get on. So I'm going to press Control and 6 to go overhead, and we're going to go and press the battery button over on the left-hand side. So that gives basic power to the aircraft. So the very next thing we're going to do is go Control 9 to go to the tablet. And in the tablet, there is a ground operations app. And in there's a ground connections section. And in there, we want to find ground power and click on request. It will say connecting. And then a few moments later, it will say release. So that means it is connected now. So we can press Control 6 to go overhead again. And we can press the primary external power button over here, which now says avail underneath it. And then the secondary external power as well, which says avail underneath it. And that changes to on both switches. Okay, we can also rotate the APU start switch round. So we go rotate it to start, and it will fall back to on its own. The APU will take a while to get up and running. So APU is the auxiliary power unit, if you didn't know, so we'll quickly pan around the aeroplane to the rear. This is the exhaust of the APU. You can see there's hot air pouring out of it already. Okay, so above here we have the ADIRU switch. This stands for Air Data Inertial Reference Unit. So the inertial guidance system basically. So we switch that on. It takes a few minutes for it to line up. You won't get an attitude indicator working in the cockpit in the primary instruments or a navigation display until that is lined up and working properly. Okay, so we can turn the window heats on. And then we can go to the electrical section. We're looking for the IFE pass seats and cabin utility switches. So we're going to turn both of those on. And then we can go to the emergency light switch here and switch it to armed and cage it. And then we can go to the passenger oxygen. We can uncage the switch, press it, it will come on saying on, and then we can recage the switch. So now we can go down to the FMC, or Flight Management Computer. So you can see now some of the systems have begun to boot up. It does take a while for the airplane to get up and running. So we can go into the FMC. This will brighten up once it's on, fully using everything. Okay, so when we initially come into the FMC, it's saying here nav data is out of date. That's purely because I've installed the airplane and I haven't updated its navigation data from Navigraph. So it knows that its own data is out of date. So we can just clear that message. It's asking us now enter inertial position. We've just brightened up, look. So if we have a look around, have we got other screens yet? They will come on over the next few minutes. Here they come. See them? Everything flickering and powering up around us. There we go, look. It's very good. Okay, so we go, it's saying enter inertial position. It's reminding us again, so we can clear that message. And we can go pause init. Then we can go next page, and we can select the GPS position, and that will put it into the scratch pad. Then we go previous page, and we can drop that into the inertial position. We can put our reference airport in. So we are at Birmingham, so that's Echo Golf Bravo Bravo, and select it. We don't have to put a gate in. So then we can carry on to route, and we can put in Echo Golf Bravo Bravo again on the route page, and we'll simulate going up to Edinburgh. We're not actually going to do the flight, but we'll just put it in as a destination. So Echo Golf Papa Hotel is the ICAO code for Edinburgh. So we're going to depart Birmingham on runway 15. So we key in 15 and drop that into the runway field. We can put a flight number in. It's worth pointing out, fields with hyphens in are optional, whereas fields with boxes are mandatory. So if we were going to use airways at this point, we can go next page, and we could put in our waypoints on the right, or intersections, and our airways on the left. So you would put your first waypoint of your route in first, and then it would come up saying direct to over here. But then you could put an airway to another waypoint and an airway, but we're not going to bother doing that for ourselves today. So we'll go previous page, and we'll just activate what we've got so far and execute it. So if we go and have a look over in the legs page now, you'll see there's still nothing in there yet. Yeah, because we haven't actually programmed any route. So if we go to the I'm going to do this in the right order for a change. Oh, there's something else we could have looked at, which I've done slightly out of order from my own instructions. In the FS Actions menu, this is where you can pre-select the fuel and payload for your aircraft. So you can come in here and you can fuel your aircraft up. Yeah. So then you could go back in here, go back to FS Actions and go to payload, and you could put passengers in and so forth. Okay, so we're not going to get too tied up in that, because what we really want to be getting on with doing is setting the airplane up. So we've done the route. Well, we haven't got a route, but we're not going to do airways, but we'll go and set our departure and arrival. So we're departing Birmingham. Runway 15 is already selected. We're going to go next, and we're going to do the Levu 1Y. I'll just double check that. Yeah, that's what I've got penciled in here on my flight plan. So Levu 1Y, and come back to the index, and then go to the arrival into Edinburgh. We'll go ILS runway 24. We'll use the AGP E1E standard terminal arrival route, and we can come back to the route page after selecting those, and we can activate that and execute. Now if we go back and look in legs now, you'll see it's all populated up with the various bits of the departure and the arrival. If we go next page, you'll see we may have some discontinuities along the way. So at the end of the star, we actually want to go via another waypoint, just to show you how you can do that. So if we use the Trent VOR, which is TNT, and drop that in, it's the top one in the list. And then we can pull AGPED back up over the top of the discontinuity. And then we come back down. In the middle, between the star and the approach, there's another discontinuity. We can just close that up and execute it. So that's got rid of any discontinuities. So the next thing we're going to do is head back to initref, and it will have changed to show the performance data and the cruise altitude. So we put in our flight level for the cruise altitude. We put in the cost index, and I'm going to make it up. In the real world, you'd get this from your operational flight plan. So then we there's some really nice integration in this, or automation I should say, to make your life easier. If we just select 0 fuel weight, it works it out for us. We can put reserves in, we'll just put 1. It means 1,000 kilograms, or 1,000 pounds, sorry, in a Boeing of fuel. Then we can step through looking at the thrust limit for the climb and go to takeoff. We can put our flaps in, so flaps 15 for takeoff maybe. So let's, why is it not letting me key things in? I think the sim might have, yeah, the sim's frozen. Give it a few seconds. As soon as the camera lets me move again, there we go. So we'll put flaps 15 in, and that calculates the reference V-speeds, so we click on each of them to populate them across. We can also select centre of gravity, and it does it for us. You'll notice in the 777 there's no longer a manual trim wheel, so we don't have to do that by hand anymore, which is quite nice. And we're basically done with that. So we can come back to legs, and we're done with the FMC for the moment. So next thing we do is to hop over to the master control panel. So that's control and 1 brings you over here. So we said we're going to fly at 36,000 feet, so we can go and set the altitude, or the target altitude. Obviously on a proper flight you'd get an initial altitude you're cleared to, and then you'd be cleared up to your cruise, but we're going to shortcut this and just say we're going straight for 36. Okay. We can go and put the flight directors on at this point. We'll leave the modes alone for the moment. You'll notice indicated airspeed's pretty good. We can leave that alone as well. The auto throttle is already armed by the look of it, so that's good. So we're pretty much done there. Something to point out is there is a minimums setting here on the 777. You've also got the barometric pressure, so we can press B to go and calibrate the barometric pressure. Okay. And obviously you can configure the navigation display as you want. You'll notice now we've got the map showing up. That basically means, and we've got attitude indicator, that means the ADIRU system has aligned. And obviously we've got a full flight plan, so it's already appearing on here. Okay, so we come over and we put the auto brake to rejected takeoff, ready to charge up the hydraulics, or not hydraulics, charge up the cylinders on the brakes to be able to stop the aeroplane quickly if it needs to. We're going to go to the center pedestal. We're going to put the transponder onto standby. They've started it in TARA, which I think is a bit wrong, but that's just me. Okay, so we're going to prepare for pushback at this point. So before we do pushback, we're going to go overhead and turn the beacon light on. So that's on. You'll see the nav light was already on in the cold and dark state. That's quite common for Boeing aircraft. So we can go back over to the tablet at this point, and we can release the ground power because we've got the APU running. Okay. We can also go and remove the wheel chocks. So at this point we can push back as we want to. So we're just going to press Shift and P, which is the default simulator option for pushing back, and you'll see the tractor is coming into view. While you're waiting for the tractor, you want to make sure that the parking brake is not on. So I'm just going to cycle it on my controls. I don't think I've got it configured actually. So we should be good. So you'll see us start to move anytime soon. So we're going to have another look outside. Has he lined up yet? Yeah, there he goes. Just connected to the aircraft. So obviously, while we are pushing back, we can actually start the aeroplane, or start the engines now. So I'm not going to try and do too many things at once. So we'll just give ourselves enough room to turn the aeroplane around here. So if we go and look outside and see this pushback happening, we'll just push back to there. So we'll press Shift P again, and that will stop the pushback. Now it's important now to go and engage the park brake, because once the engines start running, you'll start moving potentially. Okay, so Control 6 takes us overhead. The master start switches for the engines are here, so we go start on the right engine, and then we come down and look at the screens, and you can see N2 is increasing. We want it to go past 25%. So we just wait for that. So this is the the pneumatic or compressed air being generated by the APU being used to spin up the engine. So it's gone through 25%. We can now advance the fuel control lever for the right engine, and it's fully automatic on the 777. So you'll see the engine start to spool up. N1 is the turbofan speed, so you'll see that increasing, and you'll see the exhaust gas temperature go up in a moment as it ignites some fuel and starts to accelerate. There it goes. It's very quiet, isn't it? Certainly quieter than me. If we go outside, you can see the heat is starting to build up, the haze behind the engine. It's very cool. Okay, so that's that engine done. So if we press Control 6 to go overhead again, you'll notice the switch went back to normal on its own, so we can go and do the other engine now. So again, we're looking down at the N1 speed, oh sorry, N2 speed. This is the axle speed basically inside the engine, the turbine. So when it gets to 25%, we can advance the fuel control lever. So we're just waiting for that to happen. So there we go. Exhaust gas temperature is rising on engine number 1. We've got a caution. That's normal that you get a couple of cautions during startup. If you really studied the airplane, you'll learn exactly what causes the different cautions to happen. So press Control 6 to go overhead. Seeing as the engine is, it's gone back to norm already. So we can go now and turn on the hydraulic systems. So we can put all of these to auto. We're also going to put the fuel, that's why we had a warning, we hadn't engaged the fuel pumps. That's me not following my own instructions. I probably don't have fuel in the center tanks, which is why it's coming up with a pressure warning. Okay, something that's a little bit different than the 737 is the APU. It's automatic, you don't have to go and switch it on and off, which is quite nice. Okay, so we are ready to taxi. So before we taxi, we're going to go and put the taxi light on, which is over here. And we're going to release the parking brake, which is down here. So we click it. We have to hold the toe brakes on when you release it, otherwise it won't release. And we'll ease the throttles forwards. And you can see we're just starting to roll. So we'll turn the airplane around. And then while we're taxiing out, we'll go and put the flaps to the takeoff position. So you can see I've gone for 15 degrees, which agrees with what we configured in the FMC. Okay, so if we have a little look on the map and zoom in, you can see we're going to taxi out towards runway 15. So ground handling is absolutely predictable. It's very, very good. So for the purposes of this departure, because it's quite a tight one, I'm going to reduce the range on the navigation display. Oh, there's somebody else going past. So the other thing we need to do while we're taxiing is press Control 5, is it? It's down here, isn't it? Set the TCAS to on. We can press TFC over here, which will put the range rings on as well. I don't know if you can hear it picked up through the microphone. There's a helicopter hovering about half a mile away outside. So yeah, where I missed it's a good example actually of why you should follow your own checklist. Where I started talking and deviated from the checklist, I missed the fuel pumps during the start sequence. They are on the list, I just didn't select them. So we're going to taxi out, follow this departing traffic. Hopefully he will leave in a timely manner. Okay, it was an AI aircraft, it just disappeared. At least that clears the way for us, which is good. Shall we put the head tracking on? Makes it easier to turn corners, doesn't it? Checklist incomplete. Okay, that's fine. There is a checklist built into the aircraft. I've not been using it, so I'm just showing you how to do all of this manually, really. Okay, so we'll bring ourselves to a stop briefly. We'll go and put the landing lights on now, and put the strobe light on now. We're on the runway, and we're essentially ready to go. We can go and pre-select the LNAV and VNAV at this point. Remember, auto throttle is already armed, so it will kick in when we go to toga. So, throttles. Is there a toga button? Yeah, it's kind of hidden away though, so I'm just going to push the throttles all the way forwards on my own. I've gone beyond 100% on the throttles, just to see what would happen with that. So we're going to rotate now, so we're going to gently pull the nose up. 15-degree climb. It accelerates like nobody's business, doesn't it? Gear up. Now we can get autopilot on. So you can see the auto throttle has kicked in, and we're just controlling flaps now. So reducing the flaps down to 5. And then removing them entirely, and the aircraft's going to accelerate out to 250 knots and then begin the left turn at the start of the route. And there it goes. Let's have a look at these wings wobbling then. It's quite quite a still day today, so it's not going to be, probably not going to see much in the way of the wings flexing. No, we can see it a little bit. Apparently the engines can wobble around quite a lot on their pylons as well. Great looking aeroplane though, isn't it? It's huge. Okay, so that's all I really wanted to cover today, was just running through, getting the aeroplane up and running. I'll put a link to the checklist, which if you follow it properly, you won't miss the fuel pumps like I did. Yeah, so hopefully it'll be useful to you, and I will improve the checklist over time as, you know, add more to it. So there's obviously so many options of the ways you can do things in this aircraft. So obviously I've not mentioned SimBrief at all. So this is all the manual steps required to do things, and there's a lot more to this flight deck than what we've covered here. So there'll be a lot to learn and to play with over the weeks ahead. Okay, so I'm going to leave it there. See you again soon. Take care.